Hello, this is Consuela, and this is the Finding a Foothold podcast. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. And for those of you all who are out there who are new, this is season 2 of the Finding a Foothold podcast. And this is the podcast that is devoted to the caregiver who just needs answers. Answers on how to care for mom, how to care for dad, how to still have control of their life, trying to keep a job, trying to keep a marriage, trying to still be involved in their children's lives and their grandchildren's lives, but they have been sidelined, or what I often think of is that they've just been T-boned by this caregiving experience, and it has really shaken their world. So here at the Finding a Foothold community, which has been founded by me, Consuela, an occupational therapist, and I am a consultant and a coach to caregivers who are struggling to identify why they are caregiving and who have concerns about, are they equipped to caregive, and or they have started the caregiving process and they are seeing that nothing is going like they planned it to be or thought it would be. And they feel like the whole world is falling apart and that they're even losing their identity. If you are that person, I'm so glad you're here because you're at the right place. The Finding a Foothold community. And here in this community, you have the privilege of being a part of a podcast that airs twice a month. And on this podcast, you get to call in to the call in hotline and tell me your problem. And see, here on this podcast, it is very informal. You don't have to call in and get everything right. You can say, oh, you can forget your statement and you can start it again. And just give me the gist of what it is that is causing you to struggle. And what I do is I take your question. And if you give me your permission, I won't use your name, but I will use your voice asking the question. And I will air the question on the podcast, or I will tell the question on the podcast, followed by a solution to your problem. Now, I'm not saying it's the only solution and it's an all-inclusive solution that will work for every caregiver in every caregiver situation, or even the caregiver who called in. But what my response will do, it will just get the wheels churning so that you can think about what I said and start looking at your loved one, what their abilities and disabilities are, and starting to look at your environment and say, she said maybe I need to get one of these, but that one probably won't work. But it's making you think about something else that you can use so that you gain control of establishing a caregiving plan that will work and operate, that will allow you to safely provide the care that is needed while also freeing you up so that you can get parts and pieces of your life back again. Now, I'm not going to start by saying that, look, if you do everything right and you can have your whole life back, and then it's going to be as if you're not even caregiving and you're going to float off into space happily ever after. I'll tell you that's probably not going to happen because it didn't happen for me, and it's often not the case. Because when you accept the role of a caregiver, you're actually relinquishing some of your desires in order to meet the desires of someone else. And that is an honor, that is a privilege when we get to do that. And I personally believe that there are great rewards when you sacrifice and give of yourself to someone else, that the return on that investment far exceeds what you gave. And that's hard to remember sometimes when you're in the middle of it, because caregiving can get down and dirty and ugly sometimes. And sometimes we can become people that we did not know that person lived inside of us, and we have become this something that we didn't even know was in our being, and that actually happens when we're stressed out. So here on this podcast, you get to call in and tell me that question. I've made it easy for you because on my website, findingafoothold.com, there is a button at the top of the website that if you push it, it automatically takes you to a voicemail where you get to leave the question. And I'll give you that phone number now. Is 225-443-9447. So let me just demonstrate how that works. You get into findingafoothold.com, and in the top bar of the website, you'll see a call in button labeled call button. You push that, and that automatically dials the number and allow you to leave a voicemail. Then I receive that voicemail and I listen to the recordings. I'm like, wow, I've had that problem before. Oh my, I got a good suggestion for her. Or, oh, I don't like that. I don't think she should be doing that. Let me see if I could give her another suggestion for that. And what I do in the limitations of that call is I just give you some guidance on where to start exploring so that you can fix the problem or decrease the amount of problem that you're having so that you can ease the strain that you're feeling in that situation. Because my whole goal in finding a foothold is to enable you to find a way to lessen the stress, lessen the struggle, lessen everything, decrease everything that is causing your body to ache, that's causing you to spend all of this enormous amount of time helping your loved one. Spending all of this time doing the same thing over and over for them. They're calling your name 100 times an hour and you're going back to do the same thing over and over again. And I'm saying, I don't think that's smart. How much of that is needed and how much of that is manipulation? There is a difference between helping somebody who needs it and someone not wanting to help themselves and you doing too much. But there's also the concerns of someone not being safe enough to do stuff and they want to do it. And I want to offer some safe strategies for you to employ, to put in place at your parents' house, at your house, wherever the caregiving is taking place, so that you can make things safer, so you don't have to go over or be concerned all day because you're thinking, oh my, have they fallen again? I want to take this moment to stop and say, caregiver. How do you know you're a caregiver? Number one, you're caring for someone. And it doesn't mean they live with you or you live with them. Whether you go over there every day, you can actually live out of state and still be the caregiver to someone because they are relying on you to help make some decisions and help to control their environment and to oversee things to make sure, number one, that they have the basic needs met, the food, the shelter, the medicine, and you're making sure things are safe. You're making sure they can get to appointments. You're making sure all of those things can take place. And you're not necessarily doing those things, but you're overseeing them. You are still a caregiver. And even if that loved one is in a facility, they are beyond the scope of what kind of care can be safely provided in the home. And they require the need for them to be placed in a long-term care facility, whether it's assisted living, whether it is a nursing home, or they've moved into your home. You're still a caregiver. And I want you to just, to be proud of the fact that you're providing the care at the level that you can safely provide it, at the level that you have within the scope of who you are to do it. And there is no guilt in caregiving if you're doing it from a heart of love. If you are a caregiver with truly a heart to provide for the care of the need of someone that you love in your life, whether they are a relative or not, a blood relative or not, you are a caregiver. And that is such a proud role to assume. I just think it's just the highest level of honor that you can extend to anybody than to lend a hand and to assist them in the times of need. And I firmly believe that the reward of your willingness to share your life with someone, the rewards far exceed the inconveniences that you're going to incur. And the the negative things that do come with caregiving, when you endure those and endure them well and respond in kindness and love, and even when you mess up sometimes and have to repent and go back and say, you know what, I've got to find a better way to deal with this, and I need to decrease the stress. I'll go through that. And I'll definitely will be sharing some of my moments as I was the caregiver for my mom. So in this episode, my desire is to share with you that you are not alone, and also you're not defeated. I believe that caregiving can be kept positive, even in the midst of the struggles. That when you go to the end of the day, back to the why you are providing the care, and find just satisfaction that you've done your best. Even if it wasn't totally right, that there's just sense of satisfaction there that what you did help, that it did make a difference. But I also want to help you through this podcast to know that you do have limitations. And your first commitment, believe it or not, is to yourself. That if you don't commit to keeping your life fun, keeping your life healthy, keeping your life interesting, that this caregiving journey is not going to be a happy one. Even though you still have the heart to do it, it's not going to be a happy place for you. I firmly stand on a belief that, and it's going to sound like, oh, that just can't be right. I do believe that over time and through trial and error, you can set up a support system to be there for you. And I've heard many people say, but my sister won't help, my brother won't help, nobody calls, none of my friends. That may be true, but I also believe there is a support system for you. And I want to challenge you to start thinking about that. And that's what the Finding a Foothold community can do. What I can do through a private coaching service as I take you step by step with identifying the why you are choosing to be the caregiver, the how you're doing the caregiving now, and taking you through the what would you like to see change, and what would you envision your caregiving story to realistically look like. Now, I'm going to already tell you, don't even think I can make every problem go away and you're going to get up and you're going to like dance every day and mom's going to act right. She's going to listen. She's not going to complain. She's going to do what she's supposed to do. For those who have physical disabilities who are choosing not to do things because they know it's easier for you to do it. It may not all improve and you just be like, oh, I got 23 hours and a half to do for myself because I only have to do 30 minutes for mom. Now, we're not going to, I wish I could get you there, but that's probably not going to get you there. You're not going to get there, but I can get you to a level, or my desire, let me put it that way, is to see you get to a level where you have explored every option, fully aware of what they can do, how to do it, and how to set up the environment so that they can do more. So that when you come on the scene, what you're doing, whether you live with them or you're coming over to do it, that it is concise and it is free of these repetitive things, pulling them up in the wheelchair, scooting them over to the left, scooting them over to the right, getting up because they want one sip of water 1 hour, two the next hour. They want to go to the bathroom every hour on the hour. You know what? There's a better way. And I want to help to get you there, where you set limits on what is reasonable. You listen to your body as your body is saying, no more of that today. As you ignore tears from a loved one that are not genuinely caused by pain, but they are precipitated by the need to manipulate you into doing things that you do not need to be doing. When you establish a caregiving plan, that includes you learning what that diagnosis of your loved one is, and you finding help and assistance from me or a therapist in your community, meaning a physical or occupational therapist in your community, in helping you to show you what your loved one can do for themselves and teach you how to safely do those things using the correct body mechanics and techniques and equipment. Pulling in support systems that can help you along the way to free you up blocks of time so that you can return to who you were. So you can rediscover who you are now as a person who is giving part of themselves away to be a caregiver, but maintaining an entire portion of who they are so they can continue to live, to function, to breathe, to have fun, even in the midst of being a caregiver. I believe there is a place. And the reason why I believe it is because I arrived at that place. I started out thinking I knew what it was to be a caregiver. I am a trained college graduate, attended LSU Medical Center in New Orleans, Louisiana, graduated as an occupational therapist 27 years ago. And over the years, I learned the craft of occupational therapy, the profession of occupational therapy. I know how to transfer. I know how to work with people who've had strokes, who've had amputations, who have Parkinson's, who have MS, who have ALS, who are weak because of a bladder infection, congestive heart failure. You name the diagnosis, and I have worked with them. Hip replacement, knees replacement. Now, I'm not an expert that I know 100% about everything because I still confer with my colleagues, but I have worked with the symptoms of every one of those diseases. And I want to add to that some dementia and Alzheimer's diseases that make things even more challenging. But I've worked with them too to teach caregivers how to predict behaviors and how to facilitate certain behaviors of those who have cognitive problems. We're not training them to do anything, but when we arm the caregiver with enough knowledge on how to properly respond or properly facilitate or elicit different behaviors from someone who has a dementia diagnosis, you can improve how the care is given, is provided. And that's what I do. That's the goal of finding a foothold. To get you to a place where you have more days of light, of sunshine, of happiness, intermixed with those days that will just be hard. I want you to believe that we can together improve your caregiving story. So thank you for listening. And I welcome you to the Finding a Foothold podcast. And I want to encourage you to follow the podcast. Go to your favorite streaming site, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Sketcher, and follow. And also on the website, you have an opportunity where you can subscribe to the podcast, where I give you a reminder email the morning that a podcast is actually released. And that way you just get a notification, a personalized notification that I have launched a new podcast. So in season 2, the podcast will air twice a month. And the goal would be every other Wednesday that you will get a new podcast. And the podcast will feature your questions. And I will be adding in a guest speaker. My goal is to have a guest speaker every other podcast, a professional or another caregiver who wants to share some insight on how to improve certain areas of interest to different caregivers. So I'm hoping that this was clear to you that we're here for you. And me as an occupational therapist, I want to share my expertise with you and help you to become a more effective caregiver. Now, visit the website, learn a little bit more about me. Feel free to email me on the contact at Finding a Foothold email address, contact at findingafoothold.com. And for leaving a message on the call-in line, that is at 225-443-9447 is that number where you can leave a question for the podcast. So thanks again for tuning in this week. So look, I really appreciate you spending the time with me today to get to know a little bit about the Finding the Foothold community. And if you're interested in scheduling a consult with me, I want to invite you to visit the contact page on the website where you can schedule a free consult with me. And there we'll get to discuss in a little bit more detail more than what you can do on the call-in line, what your specific problem is. And I give you a little bit more insight and direction, and then we can discuss at that time some options that are available to you when you choose to sign up for some one-on-one coaching and consulting with me. And I want to invite you to check out our social media pages. I have the Finding a Foothold Instagram account, and you can follow me there. And there's also the Finding a Foothold Facebook page. You can follow me where you can also get tips and strategies from the Finding a Foothold page. And we will soon be launching a Finding a Foothold group, and you'll be given more information as the time for that comes. So I am Consuela. I am so glad to meet you. And look, this is a place of comfort, a place to relax and just feel free to be comfortable, and that I'm here for you. And I really appreciate all that you do. So I just want to say thank you, caregivers out there, for just giving of your life, giving of your time to your loved ones. But I also want you to know that there is a way to do it where you continue to give, to continue to sow good seeds into the life of someone else, but not give your whole life away, because you still have your life, your obligations that you need to fulfill in your life. And I want to help you to find a healthy balance. So stay tuned for future episodes where you will be given those tips and strategies. And remember to check out those wonderful tips on the posts on social media. And I just look so forward to continuing to grow this community. Thank you so much.